52 years ago, at this point of the world's longest mountain range, a plane crashed directly into a mountain. The surprising thing was that the aircraft disappeared immediately after the crash. This is the 8,900 kilometers long Andes mountain range of South America, where the 11,500 feet high mountains are unbearable and nothing except cold and silence. For many days, when neither the debris of the plane was found nor any dead bodies, it became clear to the authorities that now no passenger would have survived, so they stopped the search operation. The news media also kept talking about the plane crash for the next few days, and after that, everything slowly started becoming normal. People had forgotten this accident, but after about 2.5 months of this accident, exactly 72 days later, the authorities received a message from the missing plane. This was Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571, which has created a miracle in real life and has written its name in history forever. On the 12th of October 1972, this flight took off from Uruguay's capital, Montevideo. There were rugby players on the plane who had to go from Montevideo to Chile's capital, Santiago, to play a match. There was a total of 40 passengers and 5 crew members in the plane, including the rugby players. After takeoff, the plane had just reached Argentina when suddenly, due to bad weather, it had to land in the Argentine city of Mendoza. The captain took this decision because between Argentina and Chile, the world's highest Andes mountain range stands like a wall. The high mountains here are already very dangerous, and passing over them in bad weather is not without risk. The pilot planned to spend one night in Mendoza and then cross the Andes Mountains when the weather was fine the next day. But how did the pilot and all the passengers know what trouble was going to fall on them the next day? The next day, that is, on Friday the 13th of October, Flight 571 took off from Mendoza. If we look at the map, there is only a 180 kilometers distance between Mendoza and their destination Santiago, but in these 180 kilometers, there are 15,000-foot-high peaks of Andes. Therefore, the planned route of the flight was such that first the plane would go to the south of Mendoza, gain its height, and then, after reaching near the Planchon Pass, it would turn towards the Andes and cross these dangerous mountains, and then, after turning to the city of Curacaví in Chile, it will land directly in Santiago. The pilot of Flight 571 has completed about 50 flights on this route, so he had a lot of confidence in himself. As soon as the plane took off from Mendoza, it headed towards the south as per the plan. While gaining the height of the plane, the pilot noticed that a thick layer of clouds had hidden the entire scene below. Now, in this condition, the pilot established a connection with the control tower which would keep informing the pilot about his location through radio after seeing it on the radar. Apart from the control tower, the pilot can also estimate his location through another method. In this, keeping in mind the last known location of the aircraft, the current location is estimated by calculating the speed of the aircraft. This method is called dead reckoning in aviation language. As soon as Flight 571 reached parallel to the Planchon Pass, it took a right turn. Now it was passing over the Andes Mountains at an altitude of 18,000 feet. There was a blue sky above and white clouds below. The pilot was completely dependent on the Santiago air traffic control tower. As soon as they reached near the Planchon Pass, Flight 571 disappeared from the radar of the control tower. This was a normal thing because the radar signals were very weak due to the mountains. At this time, the co-pilot calculated his location through dead reckoning and at 3:21 radioed the Santiago control tower that we would reach above the Chilean city of Curicó after 1 minute and asked for permission to reduce our altitude. Now, normally it takes 11 minutes for the plane to reach Curicó from Planchon Pass, but they had covered this distance in just 3 minutes. The staff sitting in the control tower did not understand this thing. But because Flight 571 was not showing on their radar, they were permitted to descend the aircraft, but they had no idea that in fact, the co-pilot calculated the location of the plane wrongly. The pilot thought that he was above Curico, but actually he was crossing Planchon Pass. A huge disaster awaited Flight 571. As soon as he got permission from the control tower, the pilot started reducing the height of the plane. Initially, he was facing dangerous turbulence. As he crossed the layer of white clouds, he saw a huge mountain standing in front of him. Yes, at this point the pilot realized that he was still in the Andes. The pilot tried his best to gain altitude again. The nose of the plane was now facing the sky, but unfortunately, this could have been done a little earlier. At this time, this mountain was completely covered with snow. Without tail and wings, Flight 571's fuselage slid in the snow and the plane came straight down and stopped at this point. Due to the crash, 12 passengers died on the spot, especially those who were in the rear of the plane. 33 passengers survived but were badly injured. Due to the tail getting separated, the rear part of the plane was open and extreme cold was coming in from it. They were now stuck in the Andes at an altitude of 11,500 feet, where the temperature was minus 30 degrees Celsius. As soon as they came out, they could see snow-covered mountains as far as they could see. First of all, they buried the bodies of their colleagues in the snow. The news of the plane crash alerted the Chilean authorities, but they did not know that the plane had crashed in Argentina. Without wasting time, they started a search operation in which 4 airplanes took part. While searching the suspected area from morning to evening, they did not see any plane or any debris. It was a very difficult search operation because all the mountains below were covered with snow and the light was reflected. Uruguay and Argentina also participated in this search operation, and now a total of 11 aircraft spent the whole day searching for Flight 571. Here at the crash site, rescue planes flew over the surviving passengers many times, but despite their repeated signals, the rescue planes could not spot them. Later, they found lipstick in a luggage with which they wrote SOS in big letters on the fuselage of the plane. They also made a cross on the snow with the luggage bag, but the rescue planes could not spot them. After running the search operation for a total of 10 days, on the 21st of October 1972, all the passengers were declared dead, and the search operation was ended. On the 11th day, the passengers present at the crash site found a radio in the cockpit itself. By tuning, they heard the news that the search operation being run to find them had now been stopped. People were already in so much trouble, and this news made them more sad. The last hope of survival that was visible was also over. In the first week, 5 more passengers lost their lives due to injuries. Now only 28 passengers were left at the crash site. They collected the debris of the plane and luggage and closed the fuselage of the plane so that they could save themselves from the cold. They also made glasses for themselves by cutting the plastic visor of the cockpit, which was protecting them to some extent from the light reflected from the snow. They used the seat covers to save from cold and made snowshoes from the seat cushions. Till now, they had 8 chocolate bars, 3 jam jars, some dry fruits, and a few water bottles to eat. In the first week, they divided the food among themselves and ate with great difficulty. But when all these things also got over, they started eating clothes and cotton, due to which they became more ill. They were unable to find anything to get energy from in this part of the Andes. It was not possible to get down from the peak on which they had crashed, nor to hike upwards. During this time, the condition of the passengers was such that their body weight had reduced to 40%. Finally, when they could not understand anything, they started eating the body parts of their dead companions. This decision was very difficult, but hunger, thirst, and weakness forced them to take this step. 17 days after the crash, On the 29th of October, suddenly, an avalanche came at night and attacked fuselage badly. The speed of the blizzard was so fast that the entire fuselage was filled with snow from inside. 9 survivors were killed in this accident. The 19 survivors removed the snow with whatever they could get their hands on and made space for oxygen. Days were passing and the condition of the survivors was getting worse and worse. One by one, everyone was facing death and the survivors were waiting for their death. The 12th of December, that is 60 days after the crash, 3 more survivors lost the battle of life. Now the 16 survivors had only 2 options. Either they start counting their remaining days or muster up the courage and somehow hike this vertical cliff in the west. On the 12th of December 1972, 3 rugby players, Canessa, Parado, and Vicentine, decided to hike the western peak in the hope that there would be a green valley on the other side of the mountain from where they might get some help. It was a very painful hike because they did not have professional gear, and above all the temperature was minus 30 degrees Celsius. They wrapped themselves in warm clothes made from handmade sleeping bags and seats and set out on the hike. They hiked continuously for 3 days. After doing this, when they finally reached the top of the mountain, they saw that on the other side of the mountain also there were similar snow-clad mountains. There was neither greenery nor any hope of life. Due to food shortage, one person went back to the crash site. Canessa and Parado started walking downhill on the other side of the mountain in search of help. After trekking for the next 10 days and spending 61 kilometers in bad conditions, they finally reached a valley where there was greenery, animals, and a flowing river. First of all, they drank water from the river. Then they saw a man on a horse on the other side of the river. Due to the noise of the river, they were not able to convey their message to that person. The local settler on the horse got an idea, and he wrapped a paper and pen in a stone and threw it across the river. Canessa and Parado wrote the whole incident on that paper and threw it back. The person galloped the horse and delivered the letter to the Chilean authorities. At first, they could not believe that the survivors of the crash could still be alive even after 2.5 months had passed. The authorities immediately rescued Parado and Canessa, and after treating them, interviewed them in detail. On the 27th of December 1972, that is, 72 days after the crash, 3 helicopters reached the crash site on the directions of Canessa and Parado. Seeing the peak of the mountain, even the pilot was surprised at how these 2 rugby players could have climbed this mountain without any gear and experience. Finally, all the survivors present in the fuselage were rescued, and their dead companions were buried by digging a big grave there. A memorial was made by placing some stones on top of that grave, which is present there in the same condition till now. This memorial still reminds us that if a person does not lose courage, he can defeat even the biggest problem. What video should we make next? Comment below and subscribe for more.